Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Extravaganza, or the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. Happy Wednesday, everybody. May the 29th, 2024. And again, right smack dab in the middle of a Stanley Cup playoff run that is turning out to be potentially one for the ages, as we've got two amazing conference finals shaping up. Florida and the Rangers all knotted up at 2 apiece with an overtime win yesterday for the Florida Panthers, 3-2 over the Rangers. A great game. And of course, tonight, game 4, the Western Conference Finals. The Edmonton Oilers trailing 2-1, trying to even it up against the Dallas Stars. Again, a team that, we talked about a lot of times, kind of maybe flying under the radar, especially around here in the Midwest a little bit, but it's crazy is, it really, they don't get the pub. You've got the, you've got the big teams, like the New York Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers in the bigger markets and whatnot. And of course you got Dallas and Florida, a big market in the Miami area, but Dallas right now looking to grab a stranglehold, 3-1 if they can win tonight over Edmonton and take it back to Dallas for game 5. That could be very, very interesting. NBA playoffs, the Boston Celtics, they have clinched their spot in the NBA Finals with a very, very convincing sweep. I know the games were close. I guess we could use the old Brian Windhorst term, a competitive sweep, if you will, as the Boston Celtics have advanced to the NBA Finals with a 4-0 win over the Indiana Pacers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They staved off elimination last night, winning by 3. They're down 3-1 as they now will go back to Minnesota for game 5. Who knows? Maybe they can pull off a miracle. I could see them potentially winning one more game and then losing maybe in Dallas in game 6. We'll keep an eye on that as well. A lot going on in the world of sports. The baseball season, what we like to call it the quarter pole, but actually it's more like they're 1/3 through the season now. It used to be Memorial Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and of course the end of the year. Those were the breakdowns, if you will, of how you kind of gauged your favorite team, what they needed to do if they were still in the race. I know usually after the 4th of July is when a lot of times teams will decide if they're buyers or sellers at the trade deadline at the end of January or end of July. But we'll take a look at the standings. Some interesting facts to look at. Our Tigers, 27-28. They started right where they left off earlier today. A run differential of 0. Tariq Skubal with an 8-0 shutout win, although he didn't go the whole distance, obviously, with A.J. Hinch. And then they turn around and lose in the nightcap 10-2. So, again, their run differential is 0 as they split a natural doubleheader in Tiger Stadium. I know, excuse me, we say natural doubleheader because they don't happen a lot of times anymore. Just like a lot of things in Major League Baseball, tradition has gone by the wayside, but usually they'll have a game at 1 o'clock, clear everybody else to get another gate, and get everybody back in at 7 or 6:45 or whatever. But this afternoon, they treated Tiger fans and Pirate fans to a natural doubleheader. Detroit winning the first game 8-0 and losing the nightcap 10-2. And then we'll take a look back as well here today at, obviously you've heard the news, a legend, one of the best college basketball players of all time. You can talk now, but the way that college basketball is, players don't stick around like they used to. And Bill Walton passed away earlier this week on Monday, I believe, at the age of 71 with cancer. Really kept it to himself. It was shocking news to a lot of people, everybody. And, I can remember watching Bill Walton play back when he first started in the NBA is when I really started to follow college basketball was after he graduated. But boy, if he would have been healthy, one of those things, kind of like Billy Sims with the Detroit Lions. If Bill Walton could have stayed healthy, I think not only would he have been thought of one of the top players in college basketball history, he could have very well been one of the top players of all time in the NBA. He's a Hall of Famer, ranked as one of the top 50 and top 75 players. I've argued back and forth that maybe top 50 might be questionable for the NBA, but as far as college basketball, nobody with the resume that he had and some of the games that he had in college, helping lead UCLA to that record that they had, that 88-game winning streak between him and Lou Alcindor, of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They were amazing at UCLA, and he was one of the top players of all time in college basketball. And of course, we'll talk a little bit later on with Grayson Murray. Passed away on the PGA Tour at the age of 30 from by suicide. Tough loss for the PGA Tour as well, and it's kind of a tough time in the sports world the last couple of days with good people passing away. And so, anyways, welcome to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are brought to you as always by tickets.12ouncesports.com. If there's a game that you want to go to and you want some last minute tickets, check out tickets.12ouncesports.com. And we're also brought to you as well by Javi Coffee, the official coffee of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Go to javicoffee.com. If you like instant coffee or regular coffee, I invite you to try the instant coffee version of javicoffee.com. It's not messy, just a tablespoon, maybe a teaspoon or two, whatever, hot or cold. And we've got all different kind of flavors, regular decaf, Irish cream, French vanilla, my favorite, salted caramel, you name it. Go to the website, go to javicoffee.com, use the promo code Captain Lou, and you will get 15% off of your purchase. That's javicoffee.com. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we'll get you up to date on what's going on there and more as you're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live right here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube.
Do you need tickets? We have you covered. We have soccer from anywhere in the world. Any venue from any sports. That means we have college and professional football. We have baseball at every level. We have every Power 5 matchup. Remember, costumes and paints are optional. You want to see Broadway? We have them too. We have every concert from every artist. We have you covered at tickets.12ouncesports.com. Tickets for less.
That's right. We do indeed have tickets for less. That is 12ouncesports.com. As Mike mentioned, we are a ticket broker. We don't charge the exorbitant fees that you see on some of the secondary sites. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. So you got that major league game you want to go to, you want to take a ride out to Boston this weekend as they entertain the Tigers, or maybe game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs with New York and Florida, or whatever. Make sure you go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. All right. We talked about it. The Stanley Cup playoffs are in full gear. And I got to tell you, this has been so exciting to watch these conference finals. Last night, the New York Rangers jumped out to a 1-0 lead in the opening period, and they had yet to lose a playoff game this year. I think they were 6-0 starting out with the lead, and they ended up, they were up 1-0. Then they were down to 2-1. Then Trocheck got the tying goal, and Lafreniere got Lafreniere with the tying goal, his 7th of the playoffs, and then Reinhart gets the overtime winner off of a turnover. You know how it was set up? It was a bad pass by Zibanejad in overtime, led to New York drawing a penalty against Florida, or Florida drawing that penalty against the Rangers. So they went on the power play, and it didn't take long for the Panthers. 72 seconds into overtime, getting the game winner. And now they get to turn the tables. It's back 2-2, heading back to Madison Square Garden for game 5 tomorrow night. And it's so crazy, these Stanley Cup playoffs, as home ice advantage really isn't coming into account in the playoffs at all. And again, here in the Eastern Conference Finals especially, you know, both teams have won on each other's ice. So momentum is huge. Bobrovsky, I thought, played a subpar game in game 3. He played great last night. You know, the Panthers, I thought, outplayed New York in game 3. But again, That's not how it goes. It's one of those things. You let a team hang around like the Panthers did against the Rangers in Game 3. The Rangers got that overtime goal. They took the 2-1 lead, got home ice advantage back. But like we said, doesn't really matter a lot of times because home ice advantage isn't doing much in Edmonton either. So now they go to Game 5. And, 5-on-5, I still give Florida the edge. I really think both these series are going to go 7 games. And if you're the NHL, that's what you want so bad. You've got the major market, like we said, with New York, and you've got Edmonton, the major market in Canada. The storylines, Edmonton trying to get that Stanley Cup championship for the first time since the Gretzky era. They've knocked on the door a couple of times. Kenny Holland building a team of superstars. You got the Rangers looking for their first Stanley Cup in 30 years. Florida looking to cash in. And Dallas looking to win their first one since 1999. So many storylines in this one. So many teams to root for. And it's kind of weird for me. You've heard me, I don't know how many times on our show. I'm obviously not a major market guy. I tend to root against the New York teams because a lot of times I think they're overhyped, i.e. the New York Jets, the New York Giants, and except for this year, maybe the New York Knicks, although that ESPN coverage of them in the finals was an absolute embarrassment. We talked about that last week. But, I love all 4 teams right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I love the way they're playing. And to me, I don't lose either way. I told you before the playoffs, I picked Florida to beat Edmonton in the Stanley Cup finals. So as far as that goes, I've got a pretty, obviously maybe would like to see that because who doesn't like Paul Maurice unless you're a fan of the opposite team? He's always got a good quote, always fun to talk to. But Peter Laviolette, I love his stoic style when they interview him during the game. I give these guys credit because a lot of them don't like to do this, but it's all part of the game now, especially in the NHL does a really good job of this. I think all sports really do, but the NHL, they keep it quick. But I love those 2 guys. And then you've got Edmonton and Dallas in the other series. But it's really, it's again, getting back to, with Reinhart getting the overtime winner on the power play, I just, you've got, again, with Trocheck and Lafreniere playing well. Lafreniere, we talked about it. He really didn't show up a whole lot till the end of the second series. And now in the conference finals, really playing well. And, Panarin hasn't done much for the Rangers. Zibanejad, as I mentioned, not really doing a whole lot. Panarin did get an assist on the tying goal yesterday from Lafreniere. So we'll see what happens in Game 5. Shesterkin and Bobrovsky, again, really shining in net for both teams. And it's really, again, I think it's going to go 7. I honestly think that. And I think both series are. So we shift over to the Edmonton series. Dallas, as we mentioned, they're looking to go up 3-1 in their best of 7 tonight, Game 4 rather, in Edmonton. And wow, you talk about blindsided. It looked like the Edmonton Oilers had everything under control in that first period Monday night, 2-0. And then I don't know what Peter DeBoer said to the boys in the locker room after that first period, but they came out and my brother-in-law, Steve, was here. We were watching that second period together and he's like, they're a totally different team. They came out so much quicker, so much faster. And I got to tell you, they just absolutely blitzkrieged Skinner, getting those 3 goals. Robertson with a couple of goals to tie it up. He ended up with the hat trick, getting what turned out to be the game winner in the third period, leading the way to a 5-3 win for Dallas. I didn't see that coming. I honestly thought once Edmonton was up 2-0, I thought Skinner getting a little bit of confidence in that opening period. But Ottinger, he wasn't rattled. I think he could be the key to this series. I know Dallas might be a little more well-rounded on the offensive end. But boy, oh boy, I look at that. That was a chance to really get to him. Up 2-0. They couldn't put the dagger into Dallas in that opening period, in that second period when they had all the opportunity to do it. And they ended up dropping that 5-3 game. Now it's 2-1 Game 4 tonight, man, it's going to be a madhouse in Edmonton. And that'd be it. I would love to be there for Game 4 tonight. And I know a contributor to our network, Steve Lansky, who was on our Captain Lou's championship years in sports history, talking about that Edmonton team from 40 years ago. I know he'll be front and center, as well as another network contributor, the great Cody Jansen. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun game tonight, Game 4. And it's really, really looking forward to that. And I'm going to try to stay up for a little bit of it tonight. If not, the DVR is going to be set so I can watch the rest of it. With the day job that I have, it's so hard to stay up to watch these games. I'm fall asleep with the remote control in my hand, but I'll make sure to set the DVR up for this one. I think it's going to be a wild game in Edmonton, back and forth. Like I said, these playoffs have been wild, so close. And as I mentioned earlier, I think both series are going to go 7. I really do. And we're getting what we paid for. And the high-powered offense, you've got Connor McDavid some of the plays he made in the beginning of that game the other night was just absolutely amazing. Draisaitl, they've got the weapons. It's just the goaltending is shaky. And I think could be the difference. I know it sounds pretty basic, but I really think that could be the difference coming into the rest of this series. You got to get some of the other guys to step up and, talk about stepping up. One of the keys for Florida in the Eastern Conference Final in Game 4 the other night. I mean, they just let New York have their way in the neutral zone, and they kind of clogged it up a little bit, and that obviously was the difference. I think Edmonton's got to do that too. And again, you got to get the forecheck going. Edmonton, it was like they took the foot off the gas, and it looked like they got rattled after that first goal. And it's just, I know they probably didn't, but it just sure looked like it. And boy, once Dallas got the momentum and all, you could just see the confidence level. Just, they had it, right? Even when they tied that game up, and you thought, oh boy, here we go. And all of a sudden they're up 3-2, and it's like, holy cow, what hit Edmonton? That's what Dallas can do. And again, they go back now for Game 4 tonight. And as we mentioned, there really isn't a thing as home ice advantage right now. But Edmonton has got to find a way to use that crowd to their advantage. Take Dallas out of their game if they want to even it up, because I'll tell you what, 3-1 deficit, that's going to be awful tough to come back from. I know it's been done before, but it's going to be awful, awful tough to come back from. It's crazy. NBA playoffs, we talked about it. Boston with a sweep of Indiana. They're looking good. And you know what? One of the things that I am not going to do, and I hate this, is, Boston, you've got some of the media claiming, well, they've got a wounded Miami team. Then they get a wounded Philadelphia team. Now they get a wounded Indiana team. No, that's part of the game. Nobody remembers the injuries. You could have said that about some of the Celtics teams back in the 80s. Now, I know that Celtic team in 86 was probably one of the best ones of all time. I get it. But you could have said that about some of the Bulls teams. You could have said that about the Pistons in 89. Magic getting hurt. 2004, Shaq hurt. Hey, the best teams won those series. And Boston is the best team. If you think about it, there's a lot of pressure on them to make it to the finals and win. And I got to be honest with you. I don't think they've played their best basketball yet. From what I've seen and what I've read, they still play kind of in spurts. And I don't think they've played their best basketball. That's kind of scary. Now they get to wait. They get a 9-day rest, because we talked about it the other day on an extravagant few minutes. They're not going to start it earlier. Even if the Mavericks would have won yesterday, they wouldn't have pushed it ahead. They're not starting until June 6th. So they've got 9 days to do the Celtics. Now, I know they're hoping that this next series goes 7 games between Dallas and Minnesota. Minnesota luckily came through with a win last night to salvage Game 4. Now, I think they got a good shot at winning Game 5. Minnesota does at home. I don't see them winning 3 straight. I don't think it's been done in a 7-game series in the NBA, and I don't see it starting now. But Minnesota's got some talent, but that 1-2 punch of of Doncic and Kyrie, I think they're not gonna be able to be stopped. So I don't know. I think it's we'll see Game 5. I think Minnesota can win that one, and it'll go back to Dallas, and I think Dallas will win in Game 6. It's going to be a Dallas-Boston NBA final. I picked Boston in 7 and Minnesota in 7, so I got that wrong. But those games with Dallas or with Boston and Indiana were close. But, I'm not going to use that term that Windhorst used last year for his Lakers, for his boy LeBron. Competitive sweep. There is no such thing as a competitive sweep. Boston manhandled Indiana. Indiana blew Game 1. Should have won that one. The curse of the inbounds pass. You don't even need to say anything to me about the curse of the inbounds pass. But Indiana couldn't overcome them, and then they lost in Game 2. Probably should have won Game 3. But the writing was on the wall for Game 4. So congratulations to the Boston Celtics. I don't believe I'm saying that, but being a Pistons fan, still hard for me to root for a Celtics team. I'm not rooting for anybody in these playoffs. I'm rooting for good basketball, and I hope we continue to see that in that series. But 2 sweeps would have been a not good look for the NBA, and I don't even know if it's going to be a good look should Boston or should Dallas win in 5. But I still think all roads lead to a Boston and Dallas championship series. So, all right, we're going to take another break. We come back. We'll take a look, as we promised, the Major League Baseball, the 1/3 poll. We used to call it the quarter poll on Memorial Day. Well, it's a couple of days after Memorial Day. We'll give you the standings, some stats, whatever, some interesting tidbits, and more. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza. It's live right here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube.
Do you need tickets? We have you covered. We have soccer from anywhere in the world. Any venue from any sports. That means we have college and professional football. We have baseball at every level. We have every Power 5 matchup. Remember, costumes and paints are optional. You want to see Broadway? We have them too. We have every concert from every artist. We have you covered at tickets.12ouncesports.com. Tickets for less.
Indeed, we do have tickets for less. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. Minor League Baseball, Major League Baseball, your favorite team. In our instance, the Tigers traveling to Beantown this weekend to take on the Red Sox. We'll have tickets for that. Game 5 of the New York Rangers in Florida. Edmonton and Dallas, going back to Dallas for Game 5. Go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. And, of course, a reminder that the Captain Lou Extravaganza is brought to you, as always, by Javi Coffee, the official coffee of the Captain Lou Sports Network and 12 Ounce Sports. Make sure you go to javicoffee.com. If you like instant coffee, or if you're a regular coffee drinker, why don't you give this a try? Hot or cold. Just takes a tablespoon, maybe a teaspoon, however strong you want it. They've got regular decaf, salted caramel, French vanilla, the personal favorite of mine, Irish cream, you name it. Go to javicoffee.com. And as it says on the bottom of the screen, make sure that you use the promo code Captain Lou and you'll get 15% off. That's all one word, 15% off your purchase. That's javicoffee.com. Welcome back, as I mentioned, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on 12 Ounce Sports. And a reminder that you can follow us on Twitter or X, I should say. Still trying to get used to saying that. I know it's been a while. At Real Captain Lou or at 12 Ounce Sports. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, the Captain Lou Sports Network and 12 Ounce. All of our programming is on both channels. We've got some extra programming as well on the Captain Lou Sports Network. Some of my high school stuff that I do, the football and some of the college hockey games, all of that on Captain Lou Sports Network. And follow us on 12 Ounce on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram. 12 Ounce Sports is everywhere. We got a lot going on coming up this year. Here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, we are bringing you back the Captain Lou six-pack challenge, by the way, where we're going to have some great prizes this fall, better than we've ever had. Can't wait to bring you that news in August. So stick around for that. And I also want to tell you about our new podcast, or our new show on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network, Captain Lou's Championship Years in Sports History, where we go back and pick each month or each 4 or 5 weeks, we pick a new year to whatever we talk about. I was going to say chronologicalize, but I don't think that's a word. We talk about it. And our first one was 1984. And coming up next Tuesday, we're going to have a great interview with a Super Bowl champion from the San Francisco 49ers, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Randy Cross, stopped by. And we're going to have that for you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. That, of course, is the Captain Lou's Championship Years in Sports History. So really, it was a great interview. Had a lot of fun talking to Randy. Can't wait. It'll be on the network next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Really looking forward to that. All right, let's as we promised, let's talk a little bit some Major League Baseball, MLB standings. Usual suspects as we mentioned are leading the league right now as the New York Yankees, 37-19 in first place right now. But just so you know, the Cleveland Guardians, they're the number one team in the American League right now, half a game ahead of the New York Yankees, 37-19. You know, it doesn't take much to lead the American League Central. I get it. And you could have threw a dart at the wall. I thought maybe the Tigers would possibly contend. And I know it's early. I know we're only 1/3 of the way through the season. But when you got Cleveland at 37-19, nobody saw that. Or even, how about the Kansas City Royals in second place in the Central, 34 up, 22 down. They've lost 3 straight, but they're still 12 games over 500. Who would have thought that they would be in the hunt for a playoff spot right now? If the playoffs started, they'd be in. 34-22. The Minnesota Twins would be in. The Baltimore Orioles are at 34-19. They're a game and a half behind the Yankees. We knew those two teams would be right near the top of the American League and the American League East. A very, very competitive American League East. Then you got the Red Sox at 28-27. That's who our Tigers have for the next for the weekend set in Boston. So the Cleveland Guardians and the Kansas City Royals, the two surprise teams, maybe in all of Major League Baseball, but certainly of the American League. 1 and 2 with, Cleveland, the best record in the American League, a .673 winning percentage, second only to the Philadelphia Phillies, who are 39-18. And the Phillies, their lead at one time was 8 games. Now it's 5.5 as the Braves are starting to make some hay. They're 31-21. But getting back to the American League, the Seattle Mariners with a 3-game lead in the American League West over the Texas Rangers, 30-26. They're the only team above 500 in that division. Now, Seattle, we thought they could contend for a wild card spot. We thought Texas would be playing a little better. They're a couple of games under 500. And, Houston trying to claw their way back. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You got to bury Houston while you can. They're 7 games under 500. They had a horrid start. They're only 5.5 games out of first place. And with the pitching they've got, they get healthy. Watch out for the Houston Astros. They're still going to make hay. And we all thought that the Oakland A's were going to be historically bad. Well, they're ahead of the LA Angels right now. The Angels are a dumpster fire. Not quite as bad as the White Sox at 15-41. But man, oh man, the A's are only 7 games out of first place. Wouldn't that be something if the Oakland A's ended up getting first place? That's crazy. National League, you got the Phillies 39-18, as I mentioned, best record in all of the Major League Baseball. You got the Braves 5.5 behind them at 31-21. The rest of that division is garbage. Washington, the Mets, and the Marlins. I mean, the Mets, again, one of the most overrated franchises in any sport, along with the Jets. And there's a common theme here. The Giants, the Nets, the Knicks to a certain extent. The Knicks still haven't won anything in 50 years. The Central Division, you got the Brewers, 3.5 game lead on the Cubbies right now, 31 up, 23 down. Then the Cardinals clawing their way back. They had a horrible start. Now they're at 500, 27 up, 27 down. Watch out for the Cardinals. And of course, you got the Pittsburgh Pirates at 26 and 30. So we mentioned they split with the Tigers, winning the nightcap 10-2 after losing 8-0. And of course, in the West, you got the Dodgers, 35 up, 22 down. But look out for the Padres starting to make their way a little bit. Now they're in second place, 30 and 28, 5.5 out. Then you got the Giants, who were my sleeper pick, and the Giants still are my sleeper pick to try to do something in the playoffs. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So kind of your Major League Baseball records, and a couple of things that I take away from Major League Baseball as we are at the quarter pole, or 1/3 of the way through. I guess a lot of teams are at 57 games. There's only 12 players in all of baseball. I'm not talking the American League and 12 in the National League. I'm talking 12 in Major League Baseball batting 300. That's it. And I look at, the stat leaders and everything. That really stood out to me. You got Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani are 1 and 2, 338 and 329 respectively, I believe. I was floored by that. You got Wilson Contreras from Milwaukee in third. Then you go down to Salvador Perez from Kansas City, leading the American League at 322. Just absolutely stunning. There's only 12 players with over a 300 average. Swinging for the fences, baby. Chicks love the long ball. Chicks dig the long ball, whatever. I look at the analytical people, and I would love to have one on here and tell me how that's good for baseball. And pitching, obviously the pitching's dominating right now. When I look at these stats, it doesn't surprise me, because I look at my Detroit Tigers. They are so bad at hitting. But I look at, and again, but I want to bring up some of these team batting stats. I thought Detroit would be dead last with their batting average. Their team batting average right now is 236. I can't imagine that would be dead last 20 years ago. That'd be dead last probably 10 years ago. But it's 18th out of 32 out of 30 teams. The Chicago White Sox are last at 215. The best team in baseball, average-wise, are the Houston Astros, and they're not even at 500. They're at 261. It's just a different way to play. And I look at this one. The other thing that stood out to me are the strikeouts. Now, we've talked about it. Again, I keep sounding like I'm the old man, get off my lawn type of a guy. But, strikeouts, it doesn't matter anymore. Detroit, again, I want to bring this stat up. I was just looking at this. These strikeouts. The Houston Astros, again, they're the best team in baseball hitting-wise at 261, 5.5 games out of first right now in the American League West. 368 strikeouts as a team. 55 games, that's almost 7 strikeouts a game. There are teams that are averaging 10 strikeouts a game. And, I go back to, if you struck out, guys are striking out 200 times a year now. There's no repercussions. If you used to do that, you were in the minors. We've got so many players. I look at Detroit with their team batting average. You got Javi Baez, who can't bat his weight, making all kinds of money. 100 and some. He's going to get 100 and some million, 175 million from the Tigers, unless they can find a sucker to take him and trade, or they just cut bait and just pay him and tell him hasta la vista. But some of these other people, like Spencer Torkelson, was supposed to be the man. He's struggling. It's just a different game, And I'm stunned by it. These stats stunned by it. I understand stolen bases isn't ever going to be what it was. I get that. Small ball's never going to be what it was. But I look at those stats and it's amazing. And then I look at the pitching stats, going back to the stat leaders. And this cracks me up here too. I'm just going to use our Detroit Tigers, for example. Detroit's got 2 of the top 5 pitchers in ERA in the major leagues. Now, Tariq Skubal, who I still say is one of the best kept secrets in Major League Baseball. He had that rough outing against Kansas City. Even with that, giving up 6 earned runs, his ERA is 2. And he's got the best whip in baseball, right up there with his counterpart, Reese Olson. Reese Olson is, I think, 1-5 with the Tigers with an ERA of 1.91. And, Detroit's pitching is not the problem, and we all worried about it. Their bullpen is one of the best in Major League Baseball. And, they're at 500, a game under. They can score 10 runs one game, 2 runs the next. 14 runs one game, 1 the next. It's incredible. And, now we're going to see, they took care of a Toronto team that's really, really underachieving this past weekend. Now they got to go to Boston. Interested to follow that to see what they can do against the Red Sox. It's always fun as a Tigers fan when they get to play, some of these old historic rivals, the Red Sox, the Yankees, Baltimore. I mean, historic for Baltimore, of course, big in the 60s and 70s, but it's always cool to see him playing the Yankees and the Red Sox. And so I'll be following them this weekend. But those are some of the stats that stood out to me. And again, you've got the usual suspects in first place with the Yankees living up to the billing. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. The Yankees are the most decorated regular season team in the last 15 to 20 years. They haven't won a World Series since 2009. But I'm not going to sit here and bark about that because our Tigers haven't won one in 40 years. As we talked about it on our opening episode of our new podcast, Captain Lou's championship years in sports history, when we chronicled the 1984 Detroit Tigers, as we are spotlighting 1984 on that show. By the way, you can catch those in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, as well as on our YouTube channels, the Captain Lou Sports Network, and also 12 Ounce Sports. Those shows are there. I invite you to check out those shows that we did chronicling the Tigers and the Edmonton Oilers and the Brigham Young Cougars. In our next episode, of course, next week, spotlighting the San Francisco 49ers. But, it's just a different mindset. So we'll see what the Yankees can do. We'll see what the Dodgers can do. The Dodgers, they could be up there as one of the most overhyped teams in the history of sport. They won a bubble World Series, and that's it with all that high-priced talent. They won, I don't know how many divisions in a row, kind of like the Braves back in the 90s, one World Series to show for it. But at least the Braves World Series was in a normal regular season, 162 games. So it's going to be fun to just keep an eye on that. We'll get our next thorough update on Major League Baseball, obviously, right after 4th of July, because that's, the quote-unquote halfway point in Major League Baseball. Again, thanks, everybody, for joining us here tonight, by the way, on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on 12 Ounce Sports and, of course, the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. A lot going on. We invite you to join us each night for prime time with Philly Pete, 6 o'clock here on 12 Ounce Sports, leading up to our show, especially here on Wednesday nights. And, of course, what just happened on Thursday nights with the Godfather, Jeff Beck. And in the mornings, you got the Rome Show, 7 o'clock each morning. The coach does an amazing show, does an amazing job. And I want to give congratulations to Mike Caravellis. He's the only live host of a daily show talking national lacrosse, and that's the Daily Dive. And he did a magnificent job this year covering the National Lacrosse League. And great guest. I want my hats off to Mike for a job well done this year on that as their season draws to a close. So we're going to close tonight's show by talking about a legend. Bill Walton, of course, we all know, passed away on Monday at the age of 71 from cancer. Kept it pretty close to the vest. Really, you listen to all the tributes on television, on the radio, Sirius XM, whatever. And he didn't even let his closest friends know that he had cancer. And the guy was one of a kind. Now, I'm going to be, full disclosure. I often wondered why he was considered one of the best of all time. But after thinking about it, and I came to the realization that before he passed away, but you got to include what he did in college. And a lot of you are watching may not have watched him in his playing career. A lot of you may only know him from his broadcasting career. He's out there. He's a free spirit. It was kind of rough to watch sometimes because, it just kind of went off on a tangent. But that was Bill Walton. You may not have always agreed with what he said or whatever, but, he was out there. He was his own person, and he had his own niche, kind of like Dick Vitale, some of these others that are giants of the game. Bill Walton, literally and figuratively, was a giant of the game. I didn't get to watch him. I don't remember him at UCLA. I could vaguely remember him in 74 when the streak was over and they lost in the tournament to Houston, I believe, I'm trying to think of who they lost to. It just escapes me at the moment. But he was part of that 88-game winning streak. He took over for Kareem or Lou Alcindor at the time and made his mark at UCLA. It's incredible. What I'm sure a lot of you don't remember, or if you don't know this, he didn't lose a game from his junior year of high school until his senior year at UCLA. Just come to grips with that for a moment. You'll never see anything like that again. There is no way. First of all, there's no way a college basketball team now is going to win 88 straight games. It's not going to happen. And it's going to be so difficult for anybody to win back-to-back national championships again. Well, UConn did it, but they were the first one since Florida. It comes along once in a generation. But to win 8 in a row like UCLA did and the run that they had, there is no way. There is not going to be anybody that's going to win 88 games again in any sport, really, but in basketball especially. And especially, the tournament runs and everything. But he, as a big man, but he was so far ahead of his time. He could pass, he could shoot, he could run the floor, so agile, and just such a touch. And then when he got into the NBA with the Portland Trailblazers, it's amazing what they did. And, unfortunately, breaking his foot, he was really never the same. Led Portland to a world championship against the Philadelphia 76ers back in 1976-77. And then he played for a while with the Clippers, signed that big contract with the Clippers, but really didn't do a whole lot with them. And then was able to hook up with the Boston Celtics, got a 6th Man of the Year award. And it just, again, I talked about it at the top of the show, frustrated the hell out of me as a Pistons fan back in the 80s. He was part of those teams, in 85 when Detroit couldn't get that inbounds pass at the end. And then probably one of the greatest NBA teams of all time in that 86 Boston Celtics team. But again, Bill Walton passed away at the age of 71. A good dude. He was a dude. A Grateful Dead, a deadhead, whatever. He didn't care. He just, when they say the term, you dance to the beat of his own drum or whatever, march to the beat of his own drum. There's a guy who did it. And he always had fun, always had a smile on his face. And you listen to all the tributes, all the people that had a chance to work with him. And he always was there, always put himself second. He's a great dude, and he's going to be missed on the broadcast. So, rest in peace, Bill Walton. You were a good dude, a really good dude. And also some sad news in the world of golf with the passing away of Grayson Murray at the age of 30. Passed away from suicide. It just, again, make sure you hug that loved one and check in on people. They may say you're okay, but still, it doesn't hurt to say, are you sure? And again, just can't say enough about that. And depression's, it's a tough thing. It really is. And so our hearts and prayers and our thoughts go out to his family in this hard time. His compadres on the PGA Tour. I know it's a tough time for everybody right now in the golf world, but it's It's hug that special someone. And it's what Harry Higgs said was so prophetic when he talked this weekend. Not only hug your friends, but say something nice to a stranger. That's, he challenged everybody to do that. And that's one thing I took out of that, and I've been trying to do this week. Say something nice to a stranger. Help that stranger out. Open up an extra door or whatever. You never know how much that's going to help somebody. So there you go. All right, that's going to do it here for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. Join us throughout the weekend. We always have our extravagant few minutes. We never know when they're going to pop up. Something late breaking happens, we'll get it to you live here on 12 Ounce Sports, as all of our extravagant few minutes are brought to you courtesy of tickets.12ouncesports.com and, of course, javicoffee.com. And again, a reminder, join us next Tuesday. We've got an extra special Captain Lou's championship years in sports history, 3-time Super Bowl champion and former commentator on the NFL on CBS, Randy Cross, stopped by, and we'll play that interview for you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, live right here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on another edition of the Captain Lou's championship years in sports history. And again, next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy it with friends and family. Stay safe. And a reminder, keep your heads up. Keep your sticks down. Keep your feet moving. And as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So long, everybody.